All right, good morning and welcome to another edition of the newspaper review here on Lagoon Radio, the number one online gospel radio station powered by the Diocese of Lagos Anglican Communion. You can follow us on all our social media platforms. On Facebook is at Lagoon Radio Nigeria, on Instagram and Twitter is at Lagoon Radio NG. You can also download the Lagoon Radio app on Google Play Store and App Store, irrespective of the device that you use. My name is Taiwo Adejola. Good morning, and I have with me in the studio Olumakaiye Alao. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, moving on quickly, we have Nigerian Tribune, we have Daily Trust newspaper, Leadership, The New Telegraph, Business Day, we have the People's Daily, we have Ajose-Adeogun, we have the Blueprint newspaper, we have This Day newspaper, and we have the National Economy newspaper. We'll be looking at all these papers in particular order. I'll be starting with the Daily Tribune newspaper, the Nigerian Tribune newspaper. All right, the very top of the paper, special report. Amotekun so far, so good. There's a question mark there. You can continue reading. You can find out on page 8 of the paper. Tribune best in informed commentary at DAM. And the writer to the story says, Olamiti Bonuola receive honorary fellowship lifetime achievement awards. This you can read up on page 2. 38 killed in 3 Kaduna villages. You can read up on page 26. Police nab 11 suspected kidnappers in Taraba, 26 of the paper. NDLEA arrest pregnant woman, seizes over 4,000 kg narcotics in 8 states. You can read up on page 27. Couple sells 1-month-old baby for 50,000 in Ogun State.
It's pathetic.
It is. You can read up on this on page 26 as well. Jailbreak, federal government to display joint task force of armed personnel imprisoned. You can read up on page 27 of the paper. NAFDAC licenses Abwad to produce about drugs. Wow, that's nice. You can read up on page 28 of the Nigerian Tribune newspaper. And the major headline says, tension persists over electoral bill. And the writer to the story says, civil society groups to storm NAS. Senators indict governors. Ubani senators, others warn on consequences of Buhari not signing bill. And Northern Coalition tasked NAS on action. All this you can read up on pages 23 and pages 24 of the Nigerian Tribune newspaper. And at the bottom of the paper, Nigeria's tech startups raised over $1.7 billion in 2021, report had shown. And the writer to the story says, U.S. pledges continuous support to spur Nigeria's tech to global market. You can read up on page 6 of the paper.
Moving on to the Daily Trust newspaper, airfares may rise as new aviation handling rates begins on the 1st of January 2022. You can read up on page 16. Nigeria in war situation, PDP says on page 6 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Tinubu Osibajo's camps intensify campaigns as regards 2023 elections. You can read up on page 2. Electoral Bill Buhari snubs National Assembly and declines assent. The rider under that says President succumbed to pressure from governors and Malami. Override aim CSOs urge lawmakers. We will take action this week, Senator says. NAS voted president once since 1999. All of this can be found on page 5. Court jails police inspector 5 years for fraud. You can read up on page 2. Ogun couple sells 1-month-old baby for 50,000 naira. You can read up on page 2. Yola Disco gets new private operator 6 years after. You can read up more on page 12. Bandits kill 38 villagers in Kaduna State as Boko Haram kills 10 and abduct dozens in Borno State. Communal clash claims 7 in Taraba State. All of this you can read up more on page 6 of the Daily Trust newspaper.
All right, moving on to the Leadership newspaper. Fear of low profit pushes banks to adopt old core structure. 6 banks and more to follow. You can read up on the front page and can also continue reading on page 3 of the Leadership newspaper. Electoral Amendment Bill. Political parties oppose NAS overriding PMB. And the writer to the story says it's bad for his legacy. NAS won't shift support for PMB. Senate President declares, we won't interfere, says PDP. APC keeps mum. All this you can read up on page 4 of the Leadership newspaper. APC National Convention, Buni Committee meets today. You can read up on page 11. Bishop Kuka marks 45 years of priesthood. You can read up on page 4. First Bank unveils 2021 December. December is a vibe. You can read up on page 30, I guess. Livestock plan promises solution to herder farmer clashes. You can read up on page 4. Assault our minister envoy saved Nigerian passengers in Togo. You can read up on page 6 of the paper. General Sura calls for special court to try terrorists. You can read on the front page and you can continue reading on page 8 of the paper. I think. Okay. Bandits killed 38 in Kaduna communities, and the writer to the story says General Sura calls for special court to try terrorists. I think I took that already. All right, I think that's all on the leadership newspaper.
So moving on to the New Telegraph newspaper, currency swap as CBN sells 3.69 billion yuan in 3 years. You can read up more on page 3. Employment as MSMEs gulped 100 billion naira since 2017, says federal government on page 4. IGP summit report on Kyari and Osh Poppy, while there is gridlock on River Niger Bridge by police. You can read up more on page 2 and page 6 of the New Telegraph newspaper. NAFDAC certifies Abuad for COVID-19 and viral infection about drugs production on page 3. Pope Francis appoints Nigerian press priest, UN Permanent Secretary says on page 6. Kogi says NUJ and NCE warns politicians against destructive politics ahead of 2023 elections on page 5. The major headline there says war against terrorism and banditry, Turkey drones ordinance game changer presidency. The rider under that says gunmen killed 38 in fresh Kaduna attack as federal government to go after alleged sponsors of violence in the north. Visits troubled area, PDP tells Buhari as Nigeria in war situation, says IU on page 2, 3 and 4 of the New Telegraph newspaper. Electoral Acts, INEC political parties, CSO brace up for president response on page 2. And as regards to APC convention, caretaker committee decides to decide a date. Postponements will spell doom for the party, Elbry and others says on page 3. On page 5, study also shows that marijuana use can lead to harmful medical infractions. All of this can be found on the pages of the Daily New Telegraph newspaper.
All right, good morning. We have Abigail joining us on the newspaper review. Good morning, Ebolabi.
Hi, good morning. Okay, I'm going to take in the People's Daily newspaper. At the top there, updates on school children held captive. Federal Government College, Birin Yaru. Okay, they are counting the number of days since they've been held captive. Okay, you can get more details of that on the front page of People's Daily newspaper. Reps summon Interior Minister, NIS, CG, others over handling of visa and passports. The story is on page 5 of the People's Daily. Bandits kill over 38 persons in Kaduna communities as police arrest 11 notorious kidnappers. That is also on page 5 of the People's Daily. And of course, on COVID-19, Ganduje flags of mass vaccination exercise. That is on page 2, I think. On insecurity, we have captivity. We have capacity to assist security agencies. Hunters are saying Nigeria will not mortgage national assets for Chinese loans. DMO is saying customs recruitment. We are under pressure from constituent lawmakers. Cry out. Ghost doctor paid for 3 years. Niger government reviews. Of course, it's not a new thing. And then, of course, the picture here looks like President Muhammad Buhari and his son. Yes, the President Muhammad Buhari and his son and newly turbaned Taiban Dura Yusuf Muhammad Buhari and Chief of Staff Professor Ibrahim Gambari and some other people. Their pictures is what is on the front page of the People's Daily newspaper, and that's the much that is there. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to the Al Jazeera newspaper. Kaduna bandit attack. Death toll rises to 38. 29 bodies identified and particularly sad, says President. Isfa threatened to raid Adamawa communities. Issues letters to disrupt Christmas. Fear grips residents. All this you can read up on page 8 of the Al Jazeera newspaper. Sarab asked Buhari to issue moratorium on $5.8 billion fresh loan. The story is on the front page and you can continue reading on page 25. On editorial, we have legal arms proliferation worrisome. The story is there. You can continue reading on page 3. Mandatory direct primaries receipt for confusion. Malami writes Buhari. The story is on the front page and you can continue reading on page 12 of the paper. And on politics, NAS will continue to support president, says Lawan. Page 28. On news, couple sells 1 month old baby for 50,000 naira in Ogun State.
Really?
The story is on page 2. And in business, we have manufactured goods import hits 13.7 trillion naira in 9 months, says MBS. You can continue. You can read up on page 26 of the paper. People appoint. Oh, sorry. Pope appoints Nigerian permanent representative to United Nations. You can read up on page 12. APC thrills and frills as aspirants turn event into soapbox. You can read up on page 2 of the Al Jazeera newspaper.
Moving on to the Blueprint newspaper, Federal Bank of Nigeria offers gifts and tickets giveaways at December is a Vibe campaign. You can read up more on page 25. Abigail, have you gotten your own? First bank users. Sharp.
It's true.
We're working on
What's going on? Anyways, UBA customers to win big in Super Savers promo draw on page 10. I hope all these things get to me because I'm using both bank accounts. Miss Nigeria 2021 says how 18 years old hijab wearing model emerged winner on page 6.
Yeah,
Killing of 38 in Kaduna community saddens Buhari and El-Rufai, as the writer under that says IU tax media on insecurity, Taraba kidnapped, ring nabbed on page 7. And Muhammad Bello Kogi's magic wand at NPA. You can read up more on page 15. Concerning 2023's presidency, swagger kicks as Okechukwu tells Tinubu to drop ambition. Right under that says ex-governor should back younger generations. That's saying from the Director General of VON. Insists that Buhari did not betray Asiwaju. Age no barrier to good leadership, Adeyeye says. Statement marks of arrogance, unbecoming of his office, Swagger says. All of these can be found on page 6. Loans from China now are $3.59 billion, says DMO on page 5. Couple arrested for selling 1 month old baby. It's a recurring story on page 5. CSO demands details on 1 billion naira police transit camp expenditure on page 14. Opong endorses agitation for power shift to Cross River South as regards governorship on page 7. AUGF goofed over alleged 375.8 million naira on vehicles, NLIDS says on page 7.
All right, I'm moving on to this day newspaper. There's a top story there. Imperial College London. Omicron largely evades immunity from past infection or 2 vaccine doses. Fauci harps on booster jabs. That is a story that you can continue reading on page 10. Access Bank moves to claim late Sonny Odogu's properties over 50 billion naira debt. Oh Lord, oh my days. That is on page 6. On deadline, Buhari fails to reject Electoral Act Amendment Bill. The rider under that says hope now is for him to sign, since by law he failed to communicate rejection. Governors Malami, APC, still against democratic reform of voting culture. CSOs express shock, disappointment in president. All of that is okay on page 10. And then the image, this seems like an image extract from a Zoom meeting or something of such. Rampaging terrorists kill 38 in Kaduna communities. That is also on page 10 of this day newspaper. Yeah, that's all. That's all.
All right, and lastly, we have the Business Day newspaper. Political will drag Nigerians' energy grain. Hey. Okay, political will drag Nigeria's energy gains in 2021. Okay, so you can continue reading on page 30 of the paper. Pension sector braces for competition on new investors. You can continue reading on page 30. Oh, Roches surpasses NGN growth valuation targets main board. You can read up on page 2. Business Day wins best designed media website at 38th DAM Awards. You can read up on page 4 of the paper. I think that's all on the front page of Business Day newspaper. Thank you for being a part of the newspaper review here this morning. It comes up every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. here on Lagoon Radio. Don't forget to like and follow us on all our social media platforms. On Facebook is at Lagoon Radio Nigeria. On Instagram and Twitter is at Lagoon Radio NG. You can also download the Lagoon Radio app on Google Play Store and App Store, depending on the device that you use. My name is Taiwo, and thanks to my co-host Olumakaiye Alao and Abigail Umba. Thank you very much.
Yes, truly.
Yeah. Our come right after now is the Moment of Truth by the Venerable Henry Adeleke. Keep listening to Lagoon Radio. Bye.
Good morning.
You are listening to Lagoon Radio.